the world's tallest skyscraper, tallest Ferris wheel, deepest and highest pools, incredible fountains, huge hotels and malls, artificial islands, the world's top 10 busiest port and airport. And just 50 years ago, the place looked like this. So how did Dubai go from this to this? What's the origin of this sudden wealth, and is this really the city of the future?
This is Dubai, a town of no roads, no cars, no electricity. Today, a modern, thriving, busy city, developing and expanding at a prodigious rate.
The story of Dubai is truly a tale of rags to riches. After all, everything outside the city and farther inland is still quite desolate. It's a barren Arabian desert country. But here on the coast, a paradise suddenly sprang up. The most commonly given answer to this puzzle is that they'd found oil here. And that's great, but that's not, in fact, the answer. Look, Dubai is part of the United Arab Emirates, right? And the country on the whole is, yes, top 10 both in reserves and production. But Dubai itself is quite oil poor in the grand scheme of things. Let's look at what actually makes them money in 2021. They have practically everything here: trade, finance, real estate, but not oil. So the recipe for success, wealth, and endless PR is not just riding high on oil money. It's not how you make money, but it's how you spend it that matters here. In the middle of the 20th century, remember, Dubai had no skyscrapers, no oil, no nothing. Even pearling here became less and less feasible when the Japanese invented artificial pearls and the demand for real ones plummeted. So you think they'd packed their camels and got the hell out of there? Well, the local Sheikh, Rashid bin Saeed Al Maktoum, actually did something like that, packing up and heading for Europe with his inner circle. That's him riding the London Tube as a driver, shopping at jewelry stores, meeting with British ministers. Why? For this little dot on the map. In 1959, it looked something like this. And by 2021, it's become one of the busiest international airports in the world. So, am I suggesting that Dubai became what it is today because they timely built an international airport? No, of course not. But the airport is the key to the Sheikh's plan to turn this fishing village into the center of world trade, tourism, luxury, and all the rest of it. But how do you do that when you don't have any money? Half of your population are camels, and the only attraction around is sand. That's right, you invite those who have money, and they themselves build your paradise for you. And on that trip to London, the Sheikh wasn't just putting on a show for the journalists, although that didn't hurt either. He was securing financial investment for Dubai, and getting from the British, who controlled the territory at the time, permission to build the airport. Before that, there'd been no airport in Dubai, and everyone had to use the neighboring Sharjah's airport. Okay, so they built an airport in the desert, but who'd want to fly there and for what? Yes, it wasn't an immediate success, but 20 years later, Dubai Airport would be welcoming the British Queen herself. In the meantime, the Sheikh was pouring loan money into power lines, building roads and sanitation systems, widening and deepening the local base so it could accommodate large cargo ships. He built a new port, which today is one of the top 10 largest in the world. But the real turning point came in 1985. Let's just get the oil out of the way first. Yes, prices back then were still good, $30 a barrel, $70 in today's money. But the next year, in 1986, they would collapse to as low as $10 and remain there for the next 4 years. The price crash would bring the little-known country, called the Soviet Union, crashing down with it. But Dubai would survive. More than that, it would thrive. And that's because in 1985, two important developments were taking place here. The first was in the Jafsa Free Economic Zone.
Jebel Ali Free Zone, Jafsa, was established in 1985, which grew into the world's largest and fastest growing free zones.
Here it is 22 square miles. What is it? To put it simply, imagine you have a lot of money and you suddenly decide you want to do business in Dubai. Here you go. Yep, Jafsa had no restrictions for foreigners. You didn't even have to work with the locals. But more importantly, no tariffs, no income tax, no corporate tax for 50 years. Bring your own crew. And where would they be spending their pay? Yep, right here with local businesses. Welcome to corporate paradise. Bring your business here and you'll pay less and earn more. And don't forget about the trading port. Its geographic position also helped. It's the midpoint between Europe and Asia. And so Jafza started filling up with entrepreneurs from around the globe. They built offices and warehouses and kickstarted the industry. In 30 years, 7,000 companies would move here, and more than 100 of them would join the top 500 in the world. And Jafza's not even the only FEZ in Dubai. There's about a ton of them. And the second important development of 1985? Let me give you a hint. These are among the best football players in the world. Cristiano Ronaldo from Portugal, Luka Modric from Croatia, both wearing the colors of the most popular club in the world, the Spanish Real Madrid. And here's another football superstar, Zlatan Ibrahimovic from Sweden, wearing the uniform of Italian Milan, and Neymar from Brazil in the French PSG, the English Chelsea and Arsenal. Notice what they'll have in common? The Emirates on their shirts. The airline was started in 1985 by Dubai's government to develop infrastructure and tourism in the country, because trading is best done by sea, but traveling to important negotiations and exotic resorts is better on a flagship airliner. What do football clubs and their stars have to do with it? Because as soon as the airline started sponsoring them, the number of passengers grew exponentially. Today, Emirates spends more than $200 million annually on football, and just $2.5 million on, for example, US TV advertisements. As a result, in the last 10 years, the number of people flying Emirates grew by 1,100%. And so the local airport grew accordingly, so that today half the world's population could be here in less than 6 hours. But I think you understand that when Sheikh Rashid was planning this financial and trading oasis, he wasn't thinking of going into the charity business. No, he needed to keep as much of the capital in Dubai as possible. And here he was aided by Dubai's 3 natural gifts. No, not oil. It's sand, sea, and sunshine, added to which cheap labor from India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. And so the city quickly sprouted famous, huge 7 billion star hotels. The last 20 years, it's been a local contest. Who can build the tallest tower? In 2007, it was 72 stories. In 2012, it was 82. In 2017, a bit less, just 75 stories, but the building itself was taller. But that first hotel was the most important. The one that started building here in November 1994, right in the middle of the sea.
Is one of the most incredible buildings on the planet. At 321 meters, it soars higher than the Eiffel Tower.
By that time, the new Sheikh needed not just the most luxurious, no, not palace, but a hotel. He needed something bigger, a symbol, Dubai's own Eiffel Tower or Statue of Liberty. Yep, the Sheikh spends a literal $1 billion and finds young British architects. They're going to dump sand and gravel into the Persian Gulf. And on top of that, they'll build a 1,000-foot-tall concrete and glass sail, the Tower of the Arabs. To this day, the most memorable thing about Burj Al Arab is not its 2,000-square-foot grand suites decked out in gold. No, it is unmistakable how the shape of the sail sticks in your memory, as simple and iconic as the Egyptian pyramids or the Sydney Opera House, even the Eiffel Tower. The hotel opened in 1999 and the tourists poured in. And after the sail tower, the pace only picked up. The Palm and the World Islands, the dancing fountains, the tallest building in the world, and now plans for an even taller tower close to 3,000 feet tall. In short, Dubai's first luxury hotel, followed by a ton of new attractions, started drawing in hundreds of thousands of tourists each year. In 1999, it's 2.5 million tourists. 10 years later, it's 7.5 million. And another 10 years later in 2019, it's a whopping 16.5 million. And 20 times the income, $21 billion. Investment, free trade, and great tourism. The idea in it, it's genius. People from all over the world bring here their millions and their technologies, build infrastructure, make billions in profits, and spend and invest it here. A kind of money cycle from Dubai and back into Dubai. Not everything's going this smoothly, of course. Look at the cool and fancy Palm Island and the dull and empty, and the World Islands are just 10% built up. On the other hand, remember the early days of the airport? The secret to Dubai's recent success is not how much was spent on it, but how well it was invested. And new people doing it here were feeling welcome here. There's a great historical precedent for a free trade city prospering for centuries: Venice. Today, it's merely a European curiosity, a museum. But in the Middle Ages, it was a booming trade hub, all because the Venetians came up with something not unlike an early form of LLC, the Commenda. It was kind of a contract. An investor, a rich local who wished to sell something but didn't want to risk the perilous journey, was willing to invest capital in the business. And the other party pledged to carry out the journey, sell the goods, buy the new ones, and come back. They alone usually didn't have enough money, so this contract gave them the opportunity to earn some. Then, they in turn could become an investor and provide the capital for the poorer partners. So more and more families came to Venice, grew rich, and invested in the city, although the prosperity ended when the regime became more oppressive. In other words, when the people making Venice richer became unable to have their say in the politics. So will Dubai carry on growing? Well, why not? The policies of the city and the Emirate are aimed at bringing in new talent, new ideas and technologies, and giving them a fair chance. Somebody's invented 3D printed buildings, right? Welcome to Dubai! Print us an administrative building, the biggest in the world, of course. Russians in Siberia invent a hover bike? Dubai police are already testing them out. The Dubai project is so successful that their neighbor is starting to copy their homework. This is Abu Dhabi, the emirate where they do have the oil, about 95% of the country's total, in fact. And still, they're less famous than their northern neighbors. So they looked at Dubai and realized that investing oil money in growth would be more profitable than just pocketing it. So now they're also building whole new islands full of tourist attractions, opening free economic zones, creating their own iconic landmarks, like the Louvre Abu Dhabi, their own extravagant hotels that are just as fancy, if not always as elegant. As for Dubai, they just applied some great life advice. Invest long term.